You said, what is an intoxicant and how much does it have to cover the intellect to be khamar? Well, you see, in the Quran, khamar is wine. Now, the question is other than wine also khamar? Now, so what I would say is, if you're metaphorically speaking, then fine. But in essence, khamar was just wine. The way you have the name wine, and you'll have other things, whether they'll be scotches or, whiskies or beers and things like that. Now, they have their own names. Now, in the Quranic terminology, khamar was just wine. Other drinks that came about, other kind of beers that were around, so they were being made out of honey, being made out of fruits, being made out of things like this, they would also be haram if they were clearly of a similar nature in intoxication. If they were subtly had some forms of the chemical alcohol in there that were very weak, that an average consumption of that drink would not intoxicate you, then in that case they were not haram. So if it was a small percentage, 1-2%, these kind of things, they wouldn't actually be intoxicating with an average consumption. So that's the kind of ruling behind it, and that's what the Hanafi madhab, Imam Abu Hanifa, he stuck up for initially, and then his madhab after him was crucified for defending. So they were heavily, the scholars for perhaps 2 or 3 centuries after him, just slated and rinsed and attacked the Hanafi madhab on this topic. And it went to the extent that the Hanafiya eventually became so embarrassed of this ruling that they distanced themselves from it. So they kind of started to pretend that it's not really what they stick by, or they start to discuss it less so, and they become embarrassed. And this happens in on many occasions in fiqh. You'll find scholars will get embarrassed of certain rulings that the imams may have stood up for. And it doesn't mean, you see, you have to understand something here. When these imams stood up for these rulings, it's not that they were standing up for alcohol or deviant practices. They were standing up for the principle of truth, walau kana murran, even if it was embittering. And that was their point. That was Imam Abu Hanifa's point, that I absolutely understand this is going to upset you. I absolutely get the fact that this is going to destroy the borders and margins between black and white. But such is the truth, he felt. So he stood for it. And, he put his neck out on the line, defending that principle. So it's not about, don't think, oh, why do these imams, were they into this themselves? It doesn't mean that sometimes you stand up for something out of principle, that, look, it's not as easy to declare this haram. Okay. It's like when Imam Malik spoke out about, his fatwa on sexual matters, that nothing sexual is haram, obviously between a couple. And with the issue of anal sex at hand. So later Malik here became embarrassed. Lajjab, it's like, हमका शर्म आती है. Right, so they were too embarrassed. So, some of them started to turn away from it. Some of them started to pretend, oh, it wasn't there, or discuss it less. And the same kind of thing, really. But it's not, you see, what Imam Malik was doing was he was defending the principle. It's not about whether people do these things or not, but it's about, you can't, that do not that do not declare something that Allah has not declared haram as haram. وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبَ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ. Do not just you utter things. Don't for a moment think you are God. You're not God. You see, so don't you just think you have the right to declare it haram just because you find it disgusting or sick or a deviant practice, or you find this a problem in society. And it may be these things to several people, but still you're not God. And that's the principle that these Imams kind of stood by. And hence, when Imam Malik stood by the ruling that all that really, when it comes to food, very few things are actually haram. Just pig is the only haram creature because it was mentioned in the Quran. Nothing else was haram, according to Maliki fiqh. So, yes, I don't mean if they've been offered to other gods and things like that, then they are haram, or if they'd already been killed and you found them dead, because then this was more an issue of food poisoning and stuff like this. But in and of themselves, no meat was haram on earth, whether it was from the sea, the land, or the sky. Nothing is haram bar pig in the Maliki madhab. And so, you see, Imam Malik wasn't trying to say go around eat tigers, or you should eat lions, or you should eat elephants, or eating. And like people start to say, oh, Imam Malik saying, oh, you could eat dogs then. Abe salo. It's like sharam karo. Imam Malik's not saying go around eat dogs because he said dogs are not haram to eat. You see, I mean, he never said dogs are not haram to eat, but he said this principle that nothing is haram to eat except the pig. So people say, so not even a dog. So, so they say, look what the Malikis say. It's like, but this is not what he was saying. He wasn't saying go around do these things. Soil is not haram to eat. If you pick up soil and eat it, it's not haram to eat. Doesn't mean it's good to eat. So there's a difference between declaring something haram and between whether people eat it or not. But just because you don't eat it, don't for a moment, not for a split second, think you are God and thereby declare it haram. Don't do that. This one, not nice, my friend. Right? So, and this is the problem that the mullahs had, you see, that they have this God complex. They say, huh? Acha? Allah never said it's haram. Chalo, main hu na. If God was busy, don't worry. They say, main hu na, I'm here. I'll declare it haram. And you think, acha. So unless this is your dad's religion, then it doesn't really make sense. So these are the important things to remember when you're discussing alcohol or from Imam Abu Hanifa's time, or certain or sexual practices or dietary rulings from Imam Malik. It's not that they are trying to advocate that people should be doing these things or eating these things or go around eating gorillas or eating monkeys or eating. They would never, and in fact, they would have probably found these things disgusting, but they wouldn't say that, it doesn't give us the right to declare, to pretend we're God. So that's an important point.